Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday live stream. But not just another Tuesday live stream, the first one of 2026. Happy New Year! All right, we've got a fun and informative show for you today. Here it is. A Horner factory tour and 2026 preview. Now, in addition to that, we're also going to take a look back at 2025. Now, here on the channel, we brought you 52 videos last year on Tuesday as Tuesday live streams. For 51 of those, you saw this face right here. And for the other one, my colleague Don Clutterbuck stood in to make sure we brought you one every single week. But it's not just about whose face you see on the screen. There's so much going on in the background, and we can't forget that. So I've got a complete team of Horner folks supporting us on this channel every way possible, from technical support to creating thumbnails, doing all the editing, all those things. And I want to give special mention to our marketing guru, Marcy Tyree, who handles a lot of stuff in the background, including the thumbnails, and she also lends her artistic skills to in other areas as well. But I also certainly want to give special thanks to our young and talented editor and producer, Emily Tedder. Without her hard work, things wouldn't look nearly as good as they do in terms of the content we bring you here on the channel. Okay, so after giving credit where credit is due, let's get right to it. Our agenda today couldn't be simpler. We're going to take a look back at 2025 from a product release standpoint. We're going to take a virtual factory tour, which should be a lot of fun, and we're going to preview 2026. Here we go. Okay, the first product I'd like to highlight from 2025 are our micro relay modules. Now, these are components that are in a similar form factor as OCS-IO, but they don't require an I/O base. They are standalone and can be used directly with a Horner controller. And they're designed to work really easily with the micro series of Horner controllers. They'll work with any of them, but really they're designed to pair with the micro series. Why is that? Well, I'm always surprised at how many relays are used on entry-level and low-cost control systems. So we thought, let's make it easier for our customers to add relays to the micro series to get them on the back plate, and also just to give them the ability to add as many as they need. Now we have two different models of the micro relay module. The Dash A model, which I have there on the screen, that one is non-expandable. So basically you just plug it on the DIN rail, you connect it using a patch cable, and you've got 8 relays that you can work with for your application. Now in some applications you might need more than 8 relays. So in that scenario, we have our standard model. Now this model is identical to the Dash A, except it's expandable. So instead of just having one module you can add to your system, you can have as many as 15. And you just daisy chain them, again, using patch cables. And the last one in the line needs to be terminated with a terminator that's included in the box. So again, these micro relay modules are the least expensive way to add relay capability to the Horner controllers. Here are the part numbers. You can see here, not only do we have the 2 module options, but we've also got plenty of accessories as well, with patch cables and short patch cables, terminating plugs, which actually come in the box with the expandable version, as well as a cable that's designed to plug into an OCS that doesn't have an RJ45 patch cable, like say the Canvas or the Prime series. The next product we're going to highlight was huge. The Micro CPU 250 was one of our biggest product releases of the year, and modular controllers in general as a new product category were a huge release for us. And you're going to hear a lot about these products, these modular controllers, moving forward into 2026. Now, in the case of the CPU 250, it's a member of the Micro family. So it's got the same memory capability, the same program capacity as a Micro OCS family product. But of course, it's designed to fit inside the control enclosure. And it's got all the great connectivity you'd expect in a Micro, with some built-in I/O, like you'd also expect in a micro. Now, from a built-in I/O standpoint, it has 30 some odd I/O points, digital in, digital out, analog in, and analog out. And then the up to 8 analog input points can also be used as digital points if you need more digital and less analog, for instance. So it's highly versatile and really one of our bigger products from 2025. Now, if you don't need all that built-in I/O, but the rest of what I just described to you in the CPU 250 is attractive, maybe the micro CPU 200 is what you should take a look at. So it's identical in every way without the built-in I/O. Now, both the CPU 200 shown here on the screen and the CPU 250 that I just talked about can be expanded using standard OCS I/O modules directly on the back, or on the side, I guess, technically. So you can add as much I/O as you need. With the CPU 250, you're starting out with 34 I/O points, and you can add more to that using OCS I/O. In the case of the CPU 200, maybe that mix of I/O just doesn't work for you, and you want to have a custom mix of I/O without the built-ins. Well, that's where the CPU 200 comes into play. Our third and final modular controller of 2025 is the Canvas CPU 300. I would say this is probably the biggest product release on its own for 2025. So this product has been huge for us. So it's got all the capabilities of a Canvas OCS, all the connectivity that you would expect with an Ethernet port and a built-in switch, along with USB host capability, the serial ports, CAN ports, all that sort of thing. It also has a nice built-in display, not for the purposes of operator interface, but for the purposes of setup and maintenance, built right in there. And then it gets its I/O, like the CPU 200, from OCS I/O plugged in directly. So you can plug as many as 7 I/O modules directly on the side of the CPU 300, and you can expand even further than that, of course, using the normal CAN expansion of OCS I/O. So really capable product with tons of memory, tons of execution speed, the Canvas CPU 300. But probably the biggest feature of the Canvas CPU 300 is the ability to support HMI Connect touchscreens. Now, these are not touchscreens that require programming. They also don't require any configuration whatsoever. They're just really nice component touchscreens that connect to the CPU 300 using a single cable. And in that single cable, you've got power, video, and touch. And it's a ruggedized cable, not something you'd find in your living room. So it's going to hold up really nicely. So you can place an HMI Connect touchscreen anywhere within, say, 7 meters or so of the CPU 300. You could have it, in a separate enclosure. You could have it in the same enclosure. You could have it in no enclosure, depending on what your application is. And that's because we offer 2 different options when it comes to HMI Connect. We have our standard series, which is in the normal Horner sizes, the normal Horner cutouts, and you mount them just like you would a Horner all-in-one controller. But then we've also got our advanced series, which are a couple of models that are extremely rugged. They're made primarily of steel and shatterproof glass, and they're also beautiful high bright screens. So you could use them outside if you need to, They're panel mount or Visa. So with a hole pattern on the back to mount them on a pendant or something like that, and they're capacitive touch. So whether you're looking for a really premium option, as with the HMI Connect Advanced, or a standard option, which are beautiful screens that are mounted in traditional fashions, the HMI Connect is a great option with the CPU 300. Okay, now it wouldn't be a look back at 2025 without talking about the OCS 360 cloud service. It was the first, or is the first cloud service from Horner, and it provides a ton of capability. So you can connect OCS 360 to your controller, basically, and provide data recording up to 5 years. Now that's really important if you want to log machine and process data for future AI use. It provides great dashboarding, really easy to set up. It's got remote alarm annunciations and notifications, and we've just added remote access to Horner controllers directly from Seascape. So whether you're interested in the data recording and the dashboarding, or whether you're primarily interested in accessing your controllers distributed all over the country or all over the world in a secure fashion for maintenance and troubleshooting and updating processes. OCS 360 has a lot to offer. Now, it's supported in both the Canvas and the XL Prime series, okay, and it will be supported in the Micro series sometime in 2026. But basically, those controllers have the ability to push their data using MQTT to OCS 360, where all the data is available for management, dashboarding, etc. So it's really, again, a versatile service, and you should really check it out in 2026. Okay, so that does it for our look back at 2025 and all the great products, or at least some of the great products that we released here at Horner. Now let's get to our virtual product tour. And I think this is going to be fun. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at footage that was shot by Emily Tedder at our factory in Indianapolis. And I'm going to kind of walk you through what you're looking at, pause it at various points to give you a good flavor for how we do manufacturing in Indianapolis. Now, keep in mind, we have multiple facilities in multiple parts of the world. So our headquarters are in Indianapolis, both for our corporation and our division headquarters. And then we also have major locations in Cork, Ireland for Europe, and also in Bangalore, India for Asia. Now, at all these locations, US, Ireland, and India, we do engineering, we do manufacturing, we do sales and support, all those features or all those functions and more. Now, from a production standpoint, a bulk of our production is done in the United States, and the US facility is the only one that does circuit board level manufacturing. So in other words, the only facility that starts with a bare circuit board and moves up from there. At our other facilities, they focus primarily on final assembly for the local market. So in Cork, Ireland, they're doing final assembly to kind of customize the products for the European market. And the similar thing happens in Bangalore, India for the Asian market. So that's what happens from a manufacturing standpoint at Horner. But we're going to focus today primarily on the US facility. Okay, so let's get started here with the US facility. So that's our State Avenue, not corporate headquarters, but our division headquarters. That's what it looks like from the front there. And again, that's the facility that you won't see directly when you go on that's the facility you'll see on the factory tour, not the one you'll attend at our training center. The training center is a separate building in Indianapolis. Okay, as you can see, I've paused it already, because next we're going to get into not necessarily production first, but we're going to go through some of the conformance tests that we put our products through as part of what we do in Indianapolis. So what are conformance tests? Well, these are tests to test the design of a product. And any product that's a new design, or maybe it's going through a major revision, goes through conformance testing. What are conformance tests that we perform in Indianapolis? Well, those are things like temperature tests and noise tests and all those sorts of things. So let's take a look at that. The first thing you're looking at here is a temperature chamber where we will heat up or cool down products, or both, as part of the conformance process. Next, you're looking at an infrared gun. We're doing some temperature analysis on a Horner OCS product. That's very important to understand the temperatures of the board. Next, we have an ESD test. Now, you could see a little spark there. So ESD is electrostatic discharge. We're testing a couple different ways for the product to be shocked, both non-contact testing with a round tip, which is what you see there, as well as contact testing with a pointed tip, which I'm not showing on the screen. But we're basically going to shock the product at any point at which an ESD discharge could occur and make sure the product isn't disrupted. Okay, next we have a drop test. Nice tennis shoes, by the way, where we drop the product both bare as well as in packaging to test to make sure it's going to survive shipping properly. And then next we have the washdown test. This is very cool. We built a special fixture to actually wash down our products to the exact NEMA standards. and the exact standards for the IP ratings that will be put on by people, laboratories like UL, for instance. So it's really important that we do this to make sure that our products will survive properly and excel in a washed down environment. All right, pretty cool stuff. Love that machine. All right, next, I'm going to pause it here. This isn't much to look at, but this is a solder paste screening machine. So now we're moving on to the production portion of our presentation today. So we're starting with a bare circuit board. Again, you can't see it. It's inside this machine behind the door. We're starting with a bare circuit board. And the first thing we need to do is apply what's called solder paste to all the locations on the board that are going to have surface mount components, things like capacitors, resistors, etc. Okay, so it's almost like a t-shirt machine where we're putting solder paste on there. Okay, pretty cool stuff. So after the circuit board gets screened with solder paste, then it goes to the pick and place machine. The pick and place machine is awesome and it's fun to look at. Here we're taking from the reels of components that you saw earlier, we're taking capacitors, resistors, flat chips, and we're placing them in all the right locations on the printed circuit board where we have placed the solder paste. Okay, so that's what we're doing here with the pick and place machine. So there, I'll pause it again. You can see two circuit boards on a single panel that is having the components added to it, all right? And later in the production process, we'll remove the individual circuit boards from the panel. So again, let's let the pick and place machine do its job there, all right? And again, the whole point there is to add the surface mount components. Next, we're going to run the circuit board with the components added on top of the solder paste through a long oven called a reflow oven. Now it's like a pizza oven in that it's got a conveyor on it to control very carefully the speed of the circuit board as it moves through the oven. And this oven has multiple zones. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 total zones for very carefully heating the product and specifically the solder paste through a careful temperature profile to turn it into a healthy solder joint without overstressing the components by exposing them to exceptional temperatures, for instance. So that is the reflow oven. Now, once that product is complete, it's placed on a rack. And then the next part of the production process, I can't really show you. If you take a look at the way we've frozen it here, you can see in the center, there's the terminal strip has been added to that product. That is a through hole component. And typically with most of our products, there are parts like transformers, maybe large capacitors, terminal strips that are through hole components. In other words, they have to be soldered through the board. Okay, they're not sitting on top of the board. So those components are typically added by hand because there's usually not very many of them. And they're usually soldered either by hand or more commonly through a selective solder machine. And that's a cool machine that I can't show you because we don't have footage on the day we were doing shooting. The machine wasn't running that day. But anyway, this selective solder machine basically has a moving solder pot that moves underneath the circuit board to all the locations that have through-hole components that need to be soldered, like the terminal strips, capacitor, etc. It's a really fun machine to look at, and it does all the soldering on the through-hole components. Now, after we've soldered the through-hole components, now the product, or sometimes even before, the product is ready for inspection. But before that happens, let me mention the fact that this oven, this reflow oven, uses a lot of power. So we've got a canvas product with a power monitor monitoring the power usage on that machine. We've also got an OEE box so we can keep track of our productivity using the machine. And I will pause it right here. What I was starting to say is either before we put the through-hole components on or sometimes afterwards, or maybe both, the products will be carefully inspected to see if there's any issues and if there's any touch-up that's required. So sometimes, and if you look right there next to the right thumb of the operator, you'll see a little red flag. That means she has flagged or somebody else has flagged something that needs to be looked at on the board. Maybe it needs to be touched up or maybe it just needs to be inspected, a point on the board for review. So as you can see, we do a lot of review, and sometimes we have to do a little bit of touch-up. Okay, so now we're moving from the portion of the factory where we are assembling the components on the bare circuit board. Now we're moving to the part of the factory where we're actually taking all the different parts, the circuit boards, the screens, the keypads, the overlays, the plastic enclosures, all those sorts of things, and assembling them and testing them and turning them into a product. So what we're looking at here is a rack of products that have been partially assembled. Now, what you may not be able to tell is that there aren't any overlays on the front of these OCSs that have been partially assembled. There also isn't any I/O boards here yet either. Basically, these products are currently assembled partially so they can go through pre-test. So the first step is to power them up and make sure that they're, coming up and powering up properly. And then once we have done that, then we're going to be stress testing the products. And we're going to be doing this by putting the products powered up in a cold chamber for, I believe, at least 8 hours or at least overnight. Okay. And what that's going to do is that's going to cool those products down to a cold temperature. Then we're going to remove those products. Okay, you can see en masse there on that rack, and we're going to move them into a heat chamber, and they're going to be in the heat chamber, I believe, for a couple of hours. And the whole idea here is to stress the solder joints and stress the components, because what most companies have found is that component failure typically happens early in the process, and so we can stress the product and find any failures early. And then while the product is being tested, or stressed, I should say, we have the product on specific screens so we can tell if they have, power cycled or reset or something like that. They're not just sitting on the initial screen. We've actually moved them to another screen so we can tell if they've power cycled. Okay, so that's the temperature stressing that happens with our production process when a product is partially assembled. Okay, now the rest of the footage isn't all in the same exact order. Here is some footage of a technician that's doing some basic assembly, adding some internal gasketing, those sorts of things to one of our older products, which is an XL10, I believe, or maybe an XL10 Prime. Okay, and here she's adding a power cable and a display cable. And these are, of course, important components there. She's assembling a frame to make sure the product is, strong enough and survives the torsion of installation and construction or, execution of the machine. There, she just added a ferrite bead to that ribbon cable to prevent noise from being an issue on that high-speed signal that's going along the display. Now she's, cleaning off the front in preparation for putting on the overlay, and that'll be shown later. Here she's adding a keypad for the products that have, a separate function keypad, and then she's, assembling all the mechanical assembly, including the display, together and screwing it all together. Okay, let me freeze it right here. What we've just seen there is the core circuit board that has the little core circuit board, the one on top there, that has the microprocessor and the RAM and the flash. That particular core circuit board varies by product series. So the Canvas series has one, the Prime series has another, that sort of thing. Okay, and then she's added that to the main circuit board, and I'll let it roll again here. And that main circuit board has, all the peripherals, network connections, a place to add I/O later, is all present on the main circuit board. And then you'll also see here, she's adding a rechargeable battery. In these older products, they had rechargeable batteries. Our new products don't have any rechargeable batteries at all. And then she's adding some tape there to keep it, extra protection to keep it in place, and then adding the final cover and assembling that. Now, one thing you'll notice is that that product doesn't have any I/O on it yet. Okay, that's without I/O. So it could be sold as a Model 0 with no I/O, or later on we could add I/O if a customer orders a particular unit that has a particular model of I/O. Okay, so that unit there is ready to go. Okay, now all products that have analog circuitry have to be calibrated. And we've built all of our calibration equipment out of Horner equipment, but to make sure that it is reliable and accurate, all the Horner equipment that is used to calibrate other Horner equipment is sent to a lab on an annual basis for certification. So there, what we're looking at some Model 2 XLEs, XLTs, or XL4s, and here we're looking at Smart Block IO. Again, they're in the process of being calibrated at the factory. Here is some units that have had the IO added to them. All right. So this is closer to a finished product. And then here's another shot of calibration. So what we have going on here, this is a special fixture for calibrating Model 5 IO. That's the IO that has 12 in, 12 out, and then 2 analog in that are very versatile, and 2 analog out. So the analog inputs can be thermocouples, RTDs, 4 to 20 milliamps, 0 to 10 volt, and they are all high resolution. So we've got this special automated test fixture to do the calibration. You can see it's built around a Horner product from 20 years ago, but that product is so reliable, why change it out? It works like a champ. Okay, and there you can see some products on the rack that are going through calibration. There's some additional testing that's going on, loading the demo programs that are loaded before the product is shipped. And now, again, this is out of order, but this is interesting. This is a special location. It's a special enclosed table that is dust-free. So basically there's suction that's sucking out all the dust so that as she is putting on the overlay, we can ensure we have a dust-free environment. So now we're moving on to packaging, where we're adding the final labels. Some labels are for certification purposes, some are for warning purposes, some are part number type labels, all applied here in packaging along with the other accessories that are included in the box. And then finally, these products are placed on the shelf, ready to ship to our distributors from Indianapolis, Indiana. Now let's take a look forward at the products we plan on bringing you in 2026. All right, let's get started with the Micro OCS Model E. So this is a new addition to the Micro OCS family. Now in review, today we have the Model A, all right, which features a good mix of built-in I/O, including solid-state outputs. We have the Model R, which is identical except it has relay outputs. And soon we will have the Model E. Now, what separates the Model E? Well, first of all, instead of having the I/O built in on the back, it comes with an OCS I/O base that you can put inside the enclosure and add whatever I/O you need to that unit. The other thing the Model E brings is more memory, higher performance. So that means you can put larger programs in there, control larger machines because you've got more logic. You'll have faster response on your screens. It just brings you all that plus the ability to have all your I/O on the back plate. So we really think that the Micro OCS Model E will bridge the gap between the current Micro and our Canvas series for those systems in between, if you will. So I'm really excited to see the Micro OCS Model E, which should come relatively early in the year. The next product I'm going to talk about is an accessory. It's actually a series of accessories that I highlighted in our big European show that we broadcast about a month ago or so. And that is our HMI Connect extenders and splitters. Now, when I talked earlier today, when I talked about HMI Connect, I think I mentioned the fact that those screens can be placed anywhere within about 7 meters or so of the CPU 300. Now, if you need longer distance than that, you want to extend that distance, then you can use our HMI Connect extender accessory that will be available, that you will look just like you see here on the screen, or at least similar. If you need more HMI Connect screens than just one connected to your CPU 300, then you can use one of our HMI Connect splitters, okay, to have up to 3 screens connected to a single CPU 300. So this is going to be a versatile set of accessories. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that it's going to come with it an IP67 rating. Okay, so you don't have to have it in an enclosure. That kind of explains the form factor, if you will. You can have it out right in the application if you choose, or you can put it in an enclosure if you'd prefer to do that as well. But this is going to be, again, like I mentioned, a really versatile set of accessories for the HMI Connect touchscreens. Next, let's talk about one of the more anticipated OCS-IO modules that we've had, and that is the new high-speed counter module for OCS-IO. So this is going to be incredibly powerful. So you have 8 high-speed inputs, you have 4 high-speed outputs, you can do totalizing, you can do up counters, down counters, you can do quadrature, a lot of capability, anywhere from 4 to 8 counters depending on your mode. It's going to be a great product. And again, the ability to add a lot of high-speed counting capability through one or more modules to your application is going to be huge. So that's the new OCS-IO high-speed counter that you'll see here in 2026. Now, this is a new feature, not necessarily a new product per se, and that is Ethernet IP capability for the Canvas series of controllers, both the modular controller, CPU 300, as well as our all-in-one Canvas products. So what is Ethernet IP scanner anyway? Because Horner has supported Ethernet IP in other ways for years. Well, with Ethernet IP scanner, you can control devices over Ethernet IP. To date, the Horner products have only supported Ethernet IP from an I/O adapter standpoint, and also we've had the ability to exchange Logix tags, maybe with a Rockwell PLC or something. But in this scenario, the Canvas controllers will be able to control an Ethernet IP network that might have VFDs or servos or I/O or whatever that's utilizing Ethernet IP for communication. So this is going to be a huge feature for Canvas, allowing it to expand into more and more machine control applications. I'm really looking forward to this one as well. Okay, this is going to be a big product. This is another new entry in our modular CPUs with what we call the CPU 260. So what you can see here looks very similar to the CPU 250 that's in the Micro series, but this is a new CPU 260 that has 2 big additions. The first big addition is obvious. It's right there on the screen. It's the addition of HMI Connect capability. So you can add an HMI Connect touchscreen either from our standard series or advanced series to add very simply a color touchscreen to the application. Then what's under the hood is that this CPU 260 model has more speed and more capacity than the CPU 250 from a logic standpoint as well. So again, I think this is going to be a huge product for us here in 2026, and I'm really looking forward to this one. And what else? Well, I can tell you we absolutely have more in the works, more products that will be released in 2026, but I didn't want to spill all the beans, so I thought I'd better leave a little bit for anticipation. So that's our preview of 2026 from a product release standpoint, but it's certainly not all inclusive. So that does it for our technical content for today. Don't forget, it's already 2026. You don't want to miss the opportunity for OCS training if it's in the cards for you this year. We've got a basic class in February and an advanced class in March. So get online and sign up today. If you'd like to interact with Horner Automation online, there are lots of ways to do so. You can do so on our website at hornerautomation.com, our YouTube channel where you'll find hundreds of videos like these, and we're very active on LinkedIn. So check out the latest news from Horner on LinkedIn. Next week, we have a customer requested topic that is global variables versus retained variables in Cscape 10. How are they similar? How are they different? So you'll want to join us for that session so you can use them more appropriately and more effectively. Okay, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, don't hesitate to do so. It doesn't cost anything. And if you choose notifications when you subscribe, you'll be notified every time we go live or every time we post a new video. Okay, so until next week, let's all get out there and do some good.